If you were an Indiana Fever fan, if you're a Caitlin Clark fan, it was a brutal game to sit through. No Caitlin Clark, no Sophie Cunningham, no Chloe Bibby.
The Indiana Fever faced a disheartening defeat, with the absence of star guard Caitlin Clark proving to be a major factor. The Atlanta Dream didn't just win. They exposed the Fever's vulnerabilities on a grand scale. While Aaliyah Boston struggled and Natasha Howard was a non-factor, fans were quick to voice their demand for Clark's return. Given this performance, is it realistic to consider the Fever a legitimate playoff contender? This postseason matchup was always going to be an uphill battle for Indiana, and Clark's absence was the glaring headline. When a franchise's cornerstone player is relegated to the sidelines, the team is effectively starting at a significant disadvantage. It's an undeniable reality that this team's identity and offensive flow are intrinsically linked to its superstar.
And I've said it before, it's my understanding that Natasha Howard was signed to be the fourth big star on this team. And if Caitlin Clark is not playing, well, it seems to me like Natasha Howard should move up and it becomes a big three, right? The only problem is only one of your now intact big three decided to show up, and it was Kelsey Mitchell.
Now, the Fever's supposed big three without Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, and Natasha Howard failed to live up to the hype. In fact, only one of those three seemed to grasp the significance of the playoff stage. It wasn't Boston, and it certainly wasn't Howard. Kelsey Mitchell was left to carry the entire offensive load, while her teammates appeared disengaged and out of sync with the high stakes of postseason play.
Mitchell floats it in, close the foul.
Mitchell stepped up, putting in a truly commendable effort. She finished with 27 points in 33 minutes, shooting an efficient 9 of 18 from the field. Frankly, she was the only player for the Fever who appeared to have a pulse and a plan. The rest of the team's performance, however, is not a sight to behold in the box score. Aaliyah Boston, the franchise's cornerstone and a former #1 draft pick, was almost completely non-existent. She shot 3 of 9 from the field for just 8 points. It was an even worse performance than the box score suggests, as 4 of her points were scored in late-game garbage time. When the team desperately needed her to step up, she was a ghost. Then there's Natasha Howard. Talk about invisible, she managed only 5 points on a dismal 2 of 7 shooting night. This is a player with 2 All-Star appearances, 3 WNBA championships, and an All-WNBA first-team selection. It's the same player who averaged over 17 points per game just last season. Yet, in a playoff game without Caitlin Clark, she opted for a minimal contribution, taking only 7 shots. Her output felt like a minor footnote, not a critical part of the game plan. When Clark is off the floor, the expectation is that Boston and Howard will seize the moment. They're supposed to demand the ball, take control of the offense, and prove they're more than just supporting cast members. Instead, they appeared hesitant and deferred to a lesser role. The lack of energy was palpable at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, where numerous empty seats were visible, despite the reported sellout. The rows of white seats told a story that ticket reports couldn't. Without Clark, fan attendance and enthusiasm clearly wane. This wasn't just about sales. It was about the atmosphere. The building felt flat, and that lack of energy undoubtedly affected the players on the court. While Kelsey Mitchell played her heart out, a large portion of the arena seemed to lack the passion a playoff game demands. The final score was 80-68, but the game wasn't nearly as close as that margin suggests. The Dream were in control from the opening tip-off. The Fever looked sluggish, out of sync, and offensively lost from the jump. This is particularly concerning given the experience on the roster. Natasha Howard is a seasoned veteran with championship rings, and Aaliyah Boston is no longer a rookie. There's no excuse for such a collective no-show. When a team is missing its star, others must elevate their play. It's a fundamental rule of sports. However, instead of rising to the occasion, both Boston and Howard seemed to shrink under the pressure. They played like timid role players rather than the leaders the team needs to succeed in the postseason.
A winnable game for the Indiana Fever in round 1. Game 1 versus the Atlanta Dream. We had the opportunity to steal one. We came out with the right energy, the right focus. The second quarter, they made adjustments. They upped their intensity, slowed down the game, upped their physicality, and we just didn't make any adjustments. Yes, the referees were clowns. Yes, Aaliyah Boston was a no-show. Yes, Natasha Howard looked like a fossil out there on the floor who should not be in the league because she's washed. Yes, all of that is true. Our head coach, Stephanie White, is a bonehead. All of that is true. And with that being said, we had an opportunity to win. And now we have Stephanie White at the podium with no idea on what to do to help us win a game.
Meanwhile, head coach Stephanie White's decisions also came under scrutiny. While it's understandable she's managing injuries, her rotations raised serious questions. How do Aaliyah Boston and Natasha Howard, the team's two key front court players, combined for just 16 shots? In a game with Clark out, these two should have been aggressively seeking out 12 to 15 attempts each. Instead, role players like Odyssey Sims, Ariel Powers, and Erica Wheeler were taking a combined 13 shots. White's technical foul was not the impassioned display of leadership some made it out to be. A technical doesn't magically ignite a team or make players perform better. It felt like a late, performative gesture that served more as a distraction than a source of motivation. The officiating was undeniably poor, but it was bad on both sides of the court. The WNBA's officiating has long been criticized, and this game was a textbook example. However, bad officiating doesn't excuse a no-show performance. The Fever didn't lose because of the refs. They lost because 2/3 of their star players failed to produce. Fever fans are savvy, and they know the team's success hinges on Caitlin Clark. After watching Boston and Howard's performance, their calls for Clark's return are not unfounded. The team without her is flat, uninspired, and for many, unwatchable. Fans aren't paying to see 8 points from Boston and 5 from Howard. They want to see Clark, and they are vocal about it. This raises a crucial question. How much patience do fans have for Boston and Howard? Boston, while young, is a cornerstone of the franchise. Nights like this don't instill confidence. As for Howard, a seasoned veteran with championship rings, she should have taken control. Instead, she seemed to play like a timid role player. The team's inability to shoot from three-point range was another glaring issue. The combined 8 of 29 shooting from Boston, Howard, and Lexi Hull, and just one three-pointer between them, is simply unacceptable in today's game. This isn't just a bad shooting night. It's an embarrassment. The absence of Clark magnifies these issues. Without her, this team looks like just another forgettable WNBA squad. Clark isn't just a player. She's the franchise's lifeline. She's the reason arenas are packed, and why the Fever are part of the broader sports conversation. Without her, they risk becoming irrelevant again. The excuses about managing Clark's minutes sound noble, but they feel like a way to protect the coaching staff from their own flawed decisions. Without Clark, the roster's weaknesses are exposed. The lack of depth, the inconsistency of the bigs, and the confusion in the play calling. When Clark is on the court, she makes everyone else's job easier. When she's off, the offense collapses. Families who have traveled and spent their savings to see Clark are being met with disappointing performances. The Fever are playing a dangerous game. Clark is their brand, and if they continue to deliver underwhelming performances without her, fans will find other ways to engage. They'll follow her highlights online and perhaps support her elsewhere. But they won't continue to waste money on a team that can't figure out the obvious. The 80-68 score doesn't tell the full story. This was a game the Fever never had a chance to win. The dream didn't need to be great. They just had to be steady. Without Clark, the Fever lacked the fire and passion needed to compete. Fans are now making their demands clear. Bring Clark back, or they'll stop showing up. The Fever's front office must realize that if they keep making decisions that alienate the fan base, they will lose more than just games. They'll lose the very people who have finally put them back on the map. What this game showed is that the Fever are a one-woman show, and without their star, they simply don't have what it takes to compete with a team like the Dream. Aaliyah Boston and Natasha Howard. The players who were supposed to step up instead melted under the playoff spotlight. Their combined lack of production was more than a disappointment. It was a complete failure of leadership and effort when the team needed it most. The Fever's identity has been transformed by Caitlin Clark. She is the engine that drives this team, not just on offense, but in terms of fan energy and national relevance. The disheartening performance we witnessed without her made it brutally clear. The team's current core isn't capable of consistently winning without her gravitational pull on the court. The front office and coaching staff must now face a difficult truth about their roster's true potential and how heavily they rely on their generational talent. If you want more of this kind of unapologetic analysis, subscribe to our newsletter and join the conversation. We'll be breaking down every crucial moment of the WNBA season.
Game for the Indiana Fever in round one. Game one versus the Atlanta Dream. We had the opportunity to steal one. We came out with the right energy, the right focus. The second quarter, they made adjustments. They upped their intensity, slowed down the game, upped their physicality, and we just didn't make any adjustments. Yes, the referees were clowns. Yes, Aaliyah Boston was a no-show. Yes, Natasha Howard looked like a fossil out there on the floor who should not be in the league because she's washed. Yes, all of that is true. Our head coach, Stephanie White, is a bonehead. All of that is true. And with that being said, we had an opportunity to win. And now we have Stephanie White at the podium with no idea on what to do to help us win a game.
Don't let the box score fool you. The Fever's recent loss was even uglier than it looks. We're breaking down how their so-called stars disappeared when the team needed them most. Was this just a bad night? Or is the team's future without Caitlin Clark in serious trouble? The Fever are struggling, but is it a player problem or a coaching problem? We're diving deep into Stephanie White's controversial decisions and why the team's veterans are failing to step up.